Hey everyone, before I get started, I just want to remind you that if you like my content, hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and then join the Militiaman and Crew Patreon community by clicking the link in the caption. Hey, good evening everybody. Welcome back. I'm Militiaman and Crew here, and we want to thank everybody for showing up again and enjoying our work that we do. We have some fascinating stuff since I've been going over many articles today and yesterday. As you guys all know, that Iraq has been doing lots of little things. In this particular article here is Iraq Stock Exchange determines the colors of the data and prepares to broadcast on YouTube. I guess the key component to that is not only are they going to be broadcasting on YouTube, but they're going to be showing it also on their Facebook page. Why is that important? Well, if you're going to broadcast on in a global setting, you're going to get some attention. I mean, it really is a global platform. Yeah, great. So obviously the word's going to get out, and just like it does here. Everybody's here to watch us on Patreon, patreon.com with Militiaman and Crew, and also you guys know that I have a YouTube channel. So we get the information out. Sometimes there's a little bit more. Well, actually, there's a lot more in Patreon with Militiaman and Crew. And they do get, on occasion, some exclusive videos. So anyway, I think we're going to kick that up somewhat too, so be prepared. So the next article, though, is going to be in-depth details on final accounts and the consequences of that. So basically, what's happened is we haven't seen certain things happen in quite some time. They haven't shown the specific spending of the 2023 budget, 2024-25 tripartite budget. They haven't shown that yet. And here's an article that kind of suggests why. But also remember, that's not the only thing that's being hindered. It is you haven't seen the oil flow through Kurdistan, which you may have seen today. They are talking about that again through the Siam port. The Turkey's ready, but there's some dealings with Erbil and Baghdad ongoing, but let's see how it goes, because I think that if they get that sorted, I think they'll likely get it sorted because it's a necessity. There's more to that story, because you guys got to realize that not Al Sudani, but at this stage, but prior to Alak and the foreign minister showed up and they talked about a few things. Alak showed up supposedly unannounced, but they did show up on the 13th and I think the 14th of July. So anyway, just keep that in mind. But this account expert or economic expert, his name is Nuri, provided an in-depth explanation of final accounts and repercussions of them being somewhat delayed. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points, but at the end of the day, he says, from a practical standpoint, in final account of the Republic of Iraq was not submitted to the board within the deadline specified in the Financial Administration Law, and as a result, it was not the final accounts of the Republic of Iraq, and were not audited by the Supreme Audit Committee, I guess, at the time specified by law and mentioned above, which has led to the council representatives not being informed of the board's reports on the matter for years. So it wasn't just that they did it this year or last year. It's been an ongoing process that they haven't been doing this. And they're probably, why? Because they're probably hiding things they don't want to have exposed. But I think that times changed, because now they have more electronic governance going on, and they have electronic financial systems and electronic banking systems, and those government systems are going to catch the stuff. They're going to be audited. Ernst & Young's been in town for quite some time and is moving forward on some of those things as well. Basically, it says that that there's an additional 4 items. It says the loss of opportunity for the council representatives to hold informed violations, being informed of violations, and a board's report to hold ministries and entities not affiliated with the ministry accountable for their violations. Bless you, Ophelia. the difficulty of impossibility of addressing the violations after several years. So it isn't just this last year or the year before, it's been several. And so ultimately, I think what they're saying is that we probably have some things in the system that have picked up and are going to catch all that, and they're likely going to have compliance departments to have to deal with. And I imagine that some of the tribal people and some of those folks that have, effectively not necessarily blood on their hands, but have corruption on their hands, are probably going to have already had a knock on the door and have had monies clawed back, and or where there'll be more. But let's just see what happens. Parliamentary investment approval of the arbitration law. Look, there's going to be some things that we're talking about that are really kind of important, because you have some things that are for what is happening with Iraq now that is going to be important into the future, and they're setting the stage, and we already have been told about some of these things, and one of them is sovereign guarantees. For instance, if you think about Citibank and JP Morgan Chase, for instance, if in fact they have sovereign guarantees, and they're going to be the lenders for a lot of these projects, not to mention you have other people too, is that all the deposits, banking deposits, the recent ones, the aggressively recent ones that they have, are going to help with the financing of these development path, road development path projects. And some of those projects are strategic, of course, and they're major, and there's some that are major strategic projects. So here's a component of that. So I'm probably going to go over three of them. I think this one here is the first in the lineup. We'll talk about it, whether I got them in the right order or not. We're going to find out. But anyway, it says the approval of the arbitration law will protect foreign capital from sanctions. Okay, so the sovereign guarantees was first. I think that the arbitration law and or there's one more. We'll get to it, but arbitration law is helping those that bring in capital, so it's investors. And that was something that people wanted to know, is that the investors have security. So it's the citizens are going to have the ability for it, the business people and investors will have this. So it says a member of the Parliamentary Economic and Investment Committee today says that the approval of the arbitration law will protect foreign capital from international sanctions. And so tomorrow's session, and this was yesterday, so they probably had a session on it today. I haven't seen that yet, but that's what this is about. Tomorrow's session will witness the first reading of the arbitration law, which is a step towards activating commercial investment in Iraq. He points out that Iraq is in a dire need of approving this law because it will open up horizons for commercial cooperation, investment of funds, in addition to thinking about ways that will help attract investors and additional capital. So basically, they're in need of a dire approving this law because it will open up horizons for commercial cooperation and investment funds, in addition to thinking about the ways that will help attract those investors. So I think it's a big deal. I'll bet it when it comes to international investors, this here is a big deal, and therefore the pressure is on for the parliament committees to get this thing knocked out of the park, and they don't want to be a hindrance in the process. At least I wouldn't think they would be, but there probably are some people that will. But anyway, let's see what we can come up with. But the fact that they have this now on the table, and they have some of the other things, again, the sovereign guarantees was one. The banking deposit insurance is the one that escaped my mind there a second ago. So deposit insurance is going to be helping also with the above, not necessarily as much as the commercial aspect of it or industrial, but it's going to help with the citizens, investors, etc. Those investors will be happy. So all the way around, these things that they've put in place were to be expected. They weren't completely hidden from everybody, but they're actually openly exposing them that those are in play. And that's, I think, is great. So this article is called the Minister of Finance Chair's Meeting to Review Recommendations of the UNCTAD's Second Phase of an Action Plan. Okay, so Taif Sami, she's the finance ministry. She goes on to say that the recommendations of the UNCTAD project, who is involved with, again, taking care of coordinating meetings, reviewing recommendations for the details of these plans that are part of a second phase, and they're working with this project with the General Authority of Customs in the presence of the Director General of the General Authority of Customs, the Legal Department, Information Technology Department, and a number of other relevant officials were there. So ultimately, what are they going to do? They're talking about reviewing recommendations contained in this report and the letter to these people for what basically they're stating they've agreed upon the Customs Administration, which is under the UNCTAD team based on the provisions. They're talking about payment terms contained in this project document was discussed, and the recommendations were sent under the concluded agreement. So they concluded an agreement to the Council of Ministers, the Prime Minister's office, and the Ports Authority. So again, added into that, we're talking about customs. They're talking about getting that set up. Basically, the interconnectivity for the customs and borders has to be in place, and especially when they trigger a new exchange rate, they're going to have the interconnectivity and all the protections that they've talked about, the sovereign guarantees, the deposit insurance, the arbitration law. You're going to have all of that, and they do. And now they're talking about the customs document for payment terms. How are these folks that are going to be handling all of this with respect to customs? They want to know who's getting paid. That's pretty important, right? Okay, how are we paying for this? So the next article is called The Iraqi Banking System. A significant increase in the number of bank accounts and the volume of deposits for citizens. So we talked about that. And what are they talking about? International Association of Deposit Insurers. So I've already set the stage. This membership's not just a formality, but a strategic step that carries significant benefits for member countries and their banking systems. So this is kind of a global situation, isn't it? It really is. It says that the economic and political challenges over the decades have provided a strong justification for keeping money at home rather than in banks. However, the accession of the Iraqi Deposit Insurance Corporation, the ICDI, to the International Association of Deposit Insurers was a decisive step in improving confidence in the banking system. Since its accession, Iraq has witnessed a significant increase in the number of bank accounts and the volume of deposits, reflecting a significant improvement in citizens' confidence in the banks. The development enhances Iraq's ability to attract investment and support economic growth by converting savings into productive investments. So whenever everybody deposits money into the bank has some money to lend out. Remember, I started off with JP Morgan, etc. Well, depository insurance sounds like it's going to work in the same situation as if you were JP Morgan and Citigroup and you were going to do the lending on all the land going across the whole country throughout Iraq's southern port to the north, all the way into Turkey. If those banks have sovereign guarantees on their loans, the architects are pretty fascinating. Because why? Because it's a win-win situation for them. Okay, so they move on to this. It says productive investments. It says the countries cannot operate in isolation from each other. So ultimately, Iraq can't operate outside of, for instance, in isolation of Iran or for Turkey or for Saudi Arabia, Jordan, or any other one, okay, around their region. So that's what they're talking about there. But with the strategic investment in the future of the banking system and the national economy as a whole, it's going to improve that by having the ability to communicate with everybody. International cooperation is the cornerstone of deposit insurance. International bodies provide a unique platform for the exchange of expertise and knowledge between member states. So everybody has a place to go that can give expertise. National financial institutions can benefit from the successful experiences of other countries in the field of deposit insurance and avoid mistakes made by some countries. They go on to say, I think joining the International Association of Insurers, deposit insurers, enhances the transparency and credibility of the national banking system. So one after the other. There's way more to this article because it's pages. It says when citizens and investors trust the banking system, they're more willing to deposit their money in banks. That's fairly obvious. Basically, they go on to say increasing the volume of deposits available in investment can contribute to financing development projects. There you go. Development projects, because some of these projects are going to be large, right? Well, it's going to, in this particular case, they're just basically stating providing loans to small and medium enterprises and creating new job opportunities. I think we all know that the small and medium enterprises can be considered one of the backbones of all economic, good quality economic economies. Okay, there we go. Look, Iraq has been involved in digital transformation just like about every other country out there in the world has been. Many countries have been varied at stages, at many stages. We're sure about that. Hey, Iraq has been involved in digital transformation, just like about every country in the world has been. Many countries have been at varied stages, be sure. Iraq, though, has been involved with her journey now for many years and has come a long way to where she is, obviously in the banking systems, etc., and has been going through many implementation phases. Comprehensive banking systems all around the country and the world do the same sort of thing. So basically, when they do this digital transformation, and those that have done it already, the confidence in the banking system is showing signs of significantly more and more accounts being opened. So that's one of the things that they're focusing in on. So by them doing so, the process, has assurances and probably needs more assurances, but deposit insurance will go a long way with that. Just like the sovereign guarantees I mentioned, the citizens, businesses, and investors gain confidence with knowing that there is security and that they make a deposit, there's insurance available, the protection is available, especially where it comes to the Sharia law. So obviously Iraq is a Muslim nation. They have many different cultures involved, and religions. But the truth is there's a big portion of it. So ultimately, they need to cater to everybody. And one of the fastest growing portions of banking systems are part of having Sharia laws come into play to benefit the citizens of where they're located around the world. So ultimately, there's a brief snippet that I put into Patreon in this article with Militiaman and Crew. You guys can see it, but it talks about one of the components of this very large document that talks about this insurance, and it outlines all the components of it. And here's just one. They talk about cross-border issues, and that's what's going to happen here in Iraq, is that they're going to have some cross-border issues because why? We have Iran, we have da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Okay, we have that. And one of the things they say that where there is a material presence of foreign Islamic banks in jurisdiction, formal information sharing, coordination arrangements should be in place among deposit insurers in relevant jurisdictions. So this is a big thing. This is a global kind of thing, you guys. Number one, essentially, it says where there is a material presence of foreign Islamic banks, i.e. subsidiaries of conventional banks or branches, formal information sharing and coordination arrangements are in place among relevant deposit insurers and relevant safety net participants, such or subject to confidentiality provisions. And so there's some snippets that I have in here, but the headline of this particular snippet is an excerpt from International Association of Deposit Insurers, IADI. And what do they talk about? Special issues in applying the core principles to Islamic deposit insurance systems. So obviously they've taken some care to educate the people, and with all this that's going on, you can see that they have gone the extra mile to make sure people are safe, make sure that they have the sovereign guarantees, they have the arbitration law, and they have the depository insurance process. So that is huge. So So keep that in mind, thinking about, are these guys coming, are they moving forward yet? Is the process for the let's say the deletion of the zeros project that Al-Alaq and what has been in the news has been talking about, and the education that Soleil, the advisor, has been talking about this last couple of weeks. All of it supports that they've been teaching everybody, and if you're not paying attention, you're not necessarily us, but even the citizens of Iraq, if they're not paying attention, they're not going to know what we know. And we have a couple more articles and we're almost done, okay? But Baghdad submits a proposal to Washington to withdraw international coalition. So we've seen articles talking about security and development. Development is what? A lot of what I just talked about, because what are they going to be doing? They're going to be doing projects. They're going to be doing reconstruction. We're going to be doing all those things, right? Depository insurance, sovereign guarantees, development path, development road, security, development projects, major ones. Okay, so anyway, the proposal to Washington to withdraw the international coalition. So Iraq has had some security issues over the years, and now what they're trying to do is say, well, we'd like to see Washington tone down the military in their forces in Iraq, have some advisors, of course, no problem, but also just slow it down, but let's get busy in bilateral partnerships with security, for instance, advisors, bilateral relationships with business, okay? Security, and then what? Development. So that's big. In this report, it basically says that a high-level American and Iraqi military delegation met in the Pentagon in the building of the U.S. state of Virginia, where the Iraqi side suggested to the American side to begin withdrawing their international coalition forces from Iraq in September of this year. Sounds like the Iraqi delegation also proposed to the American side to begin withdrawing the international coalition forces from Iraq next September, with all forces to be withdrawn by September of 2025, while retaining a number of American military advisors. And then Lloyd Austin comes out and says, I'm pleased that the two governments are working to change the framework of the coalition mission to a long-term partnership between Iraq, America, and the rest of the coalition. So here he goes on to say the Iraq defense minister, well, his name is Thabet al-Abbasi, says, we thank the two delegations who worked hard over the last 48 hours to achieve the goal set for us. So they achieved it. The two delegations made great efforts to reach the next stage, which is the transitional stage. I would like to assure you that Iraq greatly appreciates the American partnership. So focus in on the partnership issues that they're talking about. So if they unwind American forces over time, it's definitely common. Advisors will stay behind for their further necessary operations within their needed capacity. Iraq and the USA have formed bilateral partnerships in the security and the development, and they are now and will be moving forward with those partnerships and at the executive levels of finance, okay, the development agency involved, with the advisory board and the Ministry of Finance in Iraq. So they're all involved. So over the last 48 hours from today, it appears they achieved to set that goal. Now that they have an agreement with, they will start to unwind those Americans. And then, meanwhile, the advisors will be sticking around monitoring things. And as the development partnerships move forward with security and development being key for investors going forward, just as the deposit insurance, the sovereign guarantees, the arbitration law. Okay, we've been over that all over the place. So, some of the key words, though, that I mentioned in Patreon and in my Discord chat room, executive agreements. Okay, that's at the highest levels. They talk about those bilateral relations, and they talk about in different manners, executive agreements for development goals, executive agreements for security reasons. So when they use that terminology, it gets my attention, and I think everybody should be paying attention to it as well. But here's another article that's going to be talking about some of the high-end stuff, talk about projects, things of that nature. But we have Al-Sudani meets with KBR delegation. And who is KBR? KBR is a international business, and they do have expertise in many things, and I'll maybe mention a few of those, but we'll move on. So Mohammed Shia Al-Sudani met Wednesday, which is today, with a delegation from KBR Engineering Consulting Company. They go on to say that in a statement that the meeting witnessed a review of the company's work, which includes supporting the Ministry of Planning in technical, economic, legal, commercial, and other tasks. That's a mouthful when it comes to what these guys are experienced in. They wouldn't be having this conversation at this time if they weren't qualified. He points out that the economic development, keyword, would have an impact on all development sectors, right? While the company expressed its readiness to provide assistance in digitizing government reports, storing data, and retrieving it. So the government reports that they're having, being part of an e-government system, they're going to be having assistance in digitizing the reports that come from that data, storing it, retrieving it in the future, I guess. The statement said that work was done with the Iraq Development Fund, that is telling us a story about a budget in the past and in present time, to simplify reports and subsequent procedures in the field of attracting foreign investments, increasing the level of partnership between the public, private sectors, and identifying financing options for major projects. Financing is big, you guys. You got to have the money to do all this stuff. So ultimately, we already know 2 days ago there was executive arrangements signed in a joint effort with the U.S. Agency for International Development, where they discuss the technical details of the executive agreements they signed relating to the goals to support the development efforts throughout the whole country. So KBR Inc. is an international firm qualified to help in getting these goals regarding the development of Iraq. The development of Iraq is about many things, and below a snippet in my articles that should be helpful and to show that they're qualified in helping with these new major projects, economic and strategic projects. So all of this time they've been doing all these meetings in Washington, and within about 48 hours ago they have basically come up with an agreement, and they're going to do what? They're going to reduce forces. So this is looking like they've done things to a little tit for tat, if you will. Alok went to Washington about 10 days ago, unannounced visit. He met with the U.S. Treasury and the U.S. Federal Bank, had to deal with exchange rates, had to deal with other currencies, even the yuan. But ultimately, what are they talking about? They're going to be talking about foreign ministers, Alok, banking, finance, development, sovereign guarantees, all the different things. And so ultimately, take a look at this, come in, and we have this whole report is in Patreon with Militiaman and crew. And ultimately, Iraq is going to have bilateral relations in security and bilateral relations with U.S. In finance, development, all of those things. So keep it in mind. And thank you for being with me tonight. I'm glad you guys were with me. And let's see what happens. Please, if you like the content, hit that subscribe, and we'll see you soon. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you later. Once again, guys, don't forget to hit that like button if you like this content, subscribe to the channel, or join us at the Militiaman and Crew Patreon community for even more exclusive content. You can also donate to this channel by hitting the links in the banner to help keep this page up and running. Your generous support is greatly appreciated, as always. Much, much appreciated. Thank you so much, and have a great day.